So, ladies, today we'll be re-educating on CIWA. That's our Clinical Institute Withdrawal Assessment revised. And so in order to kind of cover the re-education, we wanted to be engaging. So we've included a case study. I'm going to give you a sheet of scrap paper, which you will need. And here you go. So at the top of the first page, you have your narrative. We want you to read through. So below the narrative, you just have some basic physician orders. So just make sure that you reference all of that information in answering the questions. At the very bottom of the first page, you have 5 questions. We want you to answer those questions, and then we'll go over the answers together. If you turn to the back of the first page.
Oh, yeah, I'm like, where? I don't know what an order set is. I'm like, okay, I would have to, somebody's gonna have to give me a cheat sheet.
So there's your cheat sheet. There is your CIWA order set.
Okay.
So on the second page, that's just the BCMA example.
Oh, okay.
That's what it'll look like in the system.
That's our barcode administration.
Okay, and then that's the order set.
That's
Yes.
the order set. Yes.
Okay.
And so on the very last page, this is our actual CIWA scale.
Oh, neat.
So this
Okay.
is your assessment tool.
Okay.
Of course, when you're charting in real time, it's computerized, but we've printed it here for you to reference. So I asked that the first question, you have to score your patient. So when you score your patient, number 1 through 10, it just when we go over it allows us to quickly be able to see what received a score versus what did not.
Okay, do you want us to go this way or this way?
Yes, so start on the left and go down. For your patient, this is our perfect patient. So anything that is not listed
Very good.
in the narrative, assume that it is within normal limits.
Okay.
All right. Any questions?
I don't know yet.
Okay. If you have any questions, I'm right here, so just ask along the way. Oh, and you will also need to know that your patient's respirations are 16.
Okay.
Oh.
Only
okay.
vital sign you'll really need.
Okay.
gonna answer these questions too, or just do this part?
Just answer the question. So you've
Okay.
already answered number 1 by calculating the score. You just have to.
I was told there would be no math on this test.
Have a calculator. Okay, we ready?
I think
Oh,
so.
that was a good idea.
I was
like,
thinking,
why
oh
was
my
I was like, I can't do
I
this
should've
because I
done
need
it.
to be able to read while I'm going back and forth.
I should have done that. All right.
So let's review. Number 1, what scores did you guys come up with?
Well, I got greater than 25. I got 39, but
39. Okay.
Then I
What
must
did
have scored it wrong.
you? No. What'd you come up with?
I got 11.
11. Okay. So we will go over what was scored versus what wasn't.
okay.
And I'm glad that you all are literally on completely opposite ends of the spectrum because it's extremely subjective. So, although you have the exact same patient, every nurse is going to use his or her nursing judgment and get a different score.
Okay.
Your score's a little bit outside of our range of expected scores, but that's okay. We'll talk about it. So, number 1, nausea and vomiting.
I got a 0.
What'd you do?
Yeah, I got a 0 because abdominal pain, but it didn't. That's all it said.
Okay, good. So, tremor.
I couldn't decide between 2 or 3.
So it said that he had tremors in his hands. So I gave him a 5 because it says 4 is moderate with the patient's arms extended. But it doesn't say that the patient's arms are extended. It says he has a persistent tremor. So I scored him higher than a 4 because that means that he has a tremor all the time.
Okay.
But it
Oh, good
didn't.
point.
But it didn't say severe with arms not extended. It didn't say it was severe. It just said he had a persistent tremor.
So, we'll take
Very good
5.
point.
5 is fine. Okay. So then, what about proximal sweats?
3 or 4.
I gave him a 3
Okay.
because it didn't say it was beads, but he was
Yeah,
visibly.
my total is based on my first ones, but it was like, yeah, I was like, well, that could have been a 4, just because all it said was beads and you
Right.
didn't-
It just said diaphoretic, but
Right.
it didn't say how bad.
Right.
And so I think 3 or 4 is fine there. I think that's perfectly fine. Anxiety.
I didn't know. None.
I gave him a 7.
Why did you give him a 7 for anxiety?
Because he was having auditory hallucinations, and auditory hallucinations isn't a symptom of schizophrenia.
So, I think that has happened for us a lot, in providing education to the nurses on the unit. They just assume him to be anxious. So even though it does not say anywhere in there explicitly that he is anxious, and I give the disclaimer like, hey, if it is not mentioned, just score it a 0. We just all kind of assume these patients to be edgy. So one day she was like, he's detoxing, of course he's edgy, you know, or he's hearing things, or he's hallucinating. Yeah, he's going to be anxious. But, and two, I think we are scoring patients a little bit higher than maybe we should, just because of our expectations, our preconceived notions of what, you know, withdrawal looks like. So we expected a 0 on anxiety.
Okay. I mean, in
but
real
you are
time, I'd be asking these patients straight,
more
and
questions.
he would tell me, yes, I feel anxious, no, I don't feel anxious.
Absolutely.
You know, so I mean, it would be, like you said, it's subjective. It would be different if I'm physically speaking to you.
But you
versus-
are definitely not the first or second person to be like, oh yeah, 7, and he's extremely anxious.
But I didn't think of it as being anxious because it said equivalent to acute panic as seen in delirium or acute schizophrenic reaction. Schizophrenic have auditory and visual hallucinations. Because it said he was having auditory hallucinations, so that's the only reason I chose 7.
Yeah. So, but it makes sense why you chose 7. Agitation.
I gave him a 4.
I gave him a 0.
Okay.
Moderately fidgety or restless. Because he's got tremor, but like you said, I mean, there's no way for me to know that without asking him.
I didn't see any description of like patient was was pacing or anything that said to me that there was an agitation.
So the expectation was a 0 on agitation.
Okay.
And then tactile disturbances.
0. Which one's that?
But that's
Numbness.
Yeah, I gave him a 0.
0. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Auditory disturbances.
I gave him a 7.
Oh, see, I only did 3.
Continuous hallucinations. He's having auditory hallucinations.
And so we got a variation of scores anywhere between 4 and 7. I think all of those
I guess
are
I
accepted.
read, the description of the harshness and the frightening, and the description of moderate harshness or ability to frighten. I mean, the statement of, the voice is saying, I'm coming to get you, I thought that could be moderately frightening.
So I think that even in having a description for each of the numbers, it's still highly
Oh, heck
subjective.
Yeah, it is.
So,
No doubt.
and I think I did a 7, and maybe Carly did a 5, or vice versa. But I don't think even when we did it, I don't think we got the same answers. So I think everybody's gonna get something a little different. But as long as you did score something in that area, that's what we're most
Makes you
concerned
almost
about.
wonder if this is a tool we should do in a team for discussion purposes to verify and clarify that I see
I
what
never
I
thought about
see.
that, like how we do insulin as a double verification.
Or skin.
I never thought about that.
I think so.
I mean,
Because there
gotta
is
look-
such
yeah.
a wide
This is a
range
huge-
of
yeah.
possibilities.
This is
I mean, and it's not like we don't have both a lot of experience taking care of patients, we do, but we, as we read the description, we're getting very
See,
different.
completely different.
And I'll be honest, I don't know if maybe the reason my take on them is a little different is because of my 2 years in mental health.
It could be.
And so I will say that of the nurses, so Carla has a mental health background, Rosalind has a mental health background. Her score was much lower than everyone else's.
Because we can see those behaviors from a standpoint of in real time versus, if I don't see them, then they are still there. Versus they're really not there.
And your familiarity with them, the more you see of something, the more normalized it becomes. And so
Yeah.
like something that really stands out to me and is concerning. So I had a nurse this morning, what did she give, like a 35 or something, like 38, something like that, but one of the nurses, she had a very high score.
Yeah, which is what
And
I
she-
had.
Yeah, and she was just like, oh no, he's not okay, like he's hearing things, he's seeing things, like there's stuff going on, so.
Oh, because their lack of familiarity.
Absolutely, she hasn't been exposed to a lot of mental health patients, so it's like, this is way outside
But
of
see,
my
I've been
norm.
exposed to a lot of detoxing patients, and whenever even before CIWA existed, whenever we had a patient that had auditory or visual hallucinations, it was always max lorazepam. Because that's not a normal thing for that patient to have, so they're having the maximum symptom, and to relax the patient and make them feel comfortable, you would give them the max unless their respirations didn't allow for it.
Makes sense to me. So, visual disturbances, any score there?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Headache, fullness of head,
No,
okay. And then orientation,
I gave him a 3.
And that's what I did.
okay.
Hey, they have some
So-
comparables down there.
We've covered our scores, and so we expected scores anywhere from about 11 or so to about 15.
Okay, so you were expecting moderate.
Right. So, but based on the score that you got, so we're gonna keep your score. What score
Where
did
is
you
there a
get?
moderate? I thought that was interesting.
Because it's 8 to 14, 8 to 14, and then it says 15 or higher.
Right, I know, but I was looking from a standpoint, we don't actually have a label of mild or moderate
No,
or severe.
but I'm thinking moderate in terms
Yeah.
of the middle of the road in the order set.
Yeah.
So, what was your score again?
39.
39.
So
Okay,
it would
so
be
based
4
on your
milligrams of
score.
PO, 4 milligrams PO times 1.
Okay.
And would I call the doctor? No, not unless I have 2 consecutives that don't change the symptoms. That's what it says
Well,
in the
read
order
your,
set.
read your specific box. Keep reading.
Oh, so then I probably.
Oh, call MD stat. Oh, I didn't see that because I saw the bold beneath
See,
it.
and so that probably means that my 1 milligram tab, Q1R PRN, is, I had, and for the next one, I put yes to call the doctor, but I'll bet money, I probably didn't need to call the
No,
doctor.
yeah.
Yours
This
is
my
after
first
2
time dose,
consecutive
after
doses.
2 consecutive doses, I just saw that. I missed it too.
And so then I want you guys to refer back after picking your initial choice on the order set, refer to your doctor's orders and see if your choice stays the same.
For the number, or?
So the amount of the medication is fine. Think about your route.
Oh, fair enough, yeah. Well, he's getting hydrocodone PO.
He has it ordered. He's not necessarily getting it.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
just
but he has
ordered.
but he has pain of 8 on 10 right now, so he would get the IV.
He would.
He would get the IV.
He's
An
MPO
8 out of
too.
10, yeah.
So
Yeah,
because
so
your
then the
patient is
PO,
MPO,
yep,
yeah, we're,
Yep.
so
Nope,
we just
nope,
make sure
nope,
to get
nope.
it
Helps to
out.
look at the order set, yep.
And so,
So then it would have been the 1 milligram IV.
yes. And for you, Chandra,
So it
I
was a
guess
trick
you
question.
It was,
It wasn't, it was the.
She came
That's
up
a
with the
good one.
question.
That's a good one.
It was good.
and so next, well, we just talked about that, calling, the physician. So we know for, in your case, only if you had to give 2 consecutive doses or more, and you'd have to call stat.
And then it should be.
And, after medication administration, when is it appropriate to reassess your patient?
Well, if it's IV, it's gonna be within
15-30.
within 10 to 15 minutes. If it's PO, it's 30 minutes.
Look at your,
Is it,
is that what you see on yours?
Reassess C1 30 minutes.
So IV is 30, and then what's PO?
30 minutes. 1 hour.
1 hour.
An hour. So, just to kind of remember, and it doesn't matter, well, I didn't look at the 4 milligrams. You're calling your doctor's stat on that one.
Right.
Oh, but
And then
it's
it
still
says
1
reassess
hour.
after 1 hour.
So yes, so PO, the general thing is to reassess in 1 hour, IV 30 minutes. And lastly, where does the nurse document all the CIWA scores? This is not
That's
listed,
what I think.
it's not
I'm
listed
assuming
anywhere.
it's in the CIWA template. If
Yeah.
it's not in the CIWA template, then it's gonna be in my VAAES nursing assessment.
And it is in that, I do know it's there.
It's
Oh,
under
it's not?
frequent
It's
documentation.
in the frequent, I do, I see it when I teach the VAAES nursing. And that's what I said, I said the CPR, CIWA-Ar template, question mark.
So is there just a CIWA or is it only frequent? It's only frequent.
So it's only within the frequent documentation? Okay.
Because in the regular shift assessment tells you to go into the frequent documentation to chart CY and a couple of other assessments.
Okay, so we have verbiage that tells people where to go.
Exactly.
So just a few take-home points from our exercise. The biggest thing is just remembering how subjective in nature this tool is, but you are using your nursing judgment. So it is your judgment, your patient, you act in whatever way you think is best for your patient. However, make sure that whatever your clinical assessment of the patient is, so whatever that score is, it aligns with the appropriate treatment. So there have been some issues where the two do not match up appropriately, so we just wanna make sure
Gotcha.
that you're not administering medication to a patient who does not score high enough for medication. And then if, we know if you have to give 2 consecutive doses, you call your MD. If your score is 25 or higher, you call your MD. Also,
Is that always that way? 25 or higher is always called an MD right away?
always.
Okay.
Always call staff.
So that's good to know.
And also, if your patient experiences a seizure, you want to
Oh,
always
yeah.
start calling your MD
Obviously.
or RT, whatever makes you most
Both?
comfortable. Right. So,
And the
any other-
rails are supposed to be padded and all that good stuff. Because this patient has a seizure history.
Yeah, that's already.
So he
right.
should have padded rails anyway because he has a seizure history.
I was gonna say, yeah, he should be on seizure precautions for
Mhm.
sure. Any questions, ladies?
No, that was really good, Carla.
Yeah, that was good. Thank you, Matrice.
You're welcome.
that was
Anything I
really good.
missed? Anything else we need to cover?
That's it.
Okay. Thank y'all.